Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Well, it's been a really interesting day. We've just heard that apparently the Reserve Bank Governor was not telling the truth because she was being polite, which frankly is a little bit patronising for a professional woman at the top of her career. During question time, we discovered that the member for Fairfax, who is now both the Shadow Treasurer and the Shadow Assistant Treasurer, doesn't know how interest rates are set. Perhaps he needs a better assistant. Anyway, while it may be inconvenient for an opposition desperate to politicise everything to deflect attention from their chaos and disorder, the Reserve Bank Governor Bullock has in fact said that the drivers of inflation in Australia are strong domestic demand relative to supply, housing costs and market service prices, labour and non-labour pressures, temporary price movements and a tight labour market, which of course means we have low unemployment. You will note that government spending was not included in her comments. And I don't think she was just being polite. I think she knows her stuff. And in fact, nor was it included in the Reserve Bank Board's comments today, where the cause identified was in fact growth in private demand. And let's not forget that the opposition, when they were in government, left Australia with inflation that was 6.1% and rising. It's now much lower than that. They left us with higher spending, no savings and bigger deficits. And then, most recently, as coalition opposition, they went to the election with a plan for bigger deficits, more debt and a plan to hike up taxes for every taxpayer to pay for nuclear reactors. We are focused on cost of living, they're focused on themselves. They oppose pretty much every cost of living measure to help Australians that we put forward over the last term of government, right down to voting against tax cuts for Australians. Meanwhile, we delivered 2 surpluses after a decade of deficits under them, paid down some of the Liberal debt we inherited from those opposite, and the MYEFO showed the budget is now $233 billion better than we inherited, and we found more than $114 billion in savings. But if the opposition truly thinks we should be cutting government spending, perhaps they could suggest exactly where they would like those cuts. Do they want us to cut health funding? We know they've tried to undermine Medicare since it was introduced, and at a time when we have an ageing population with increased demands on the health system, we have responded by investing in Medicare urgent care clinics, Medicare mental health clinics, 1800 Medicare, cheaper medicines and 60-day scripts, and extra funding for the hospital system in our agreement with the states. So do they want to cut funding for health? We know they neglected veterans, so maybe that's where those opposite think we should be cutting spending. When we came to government in 2022, there was a backlog of 42,000 veterans' total and permanent incapacitation claims. These claims were sitting in the department for up to 18 months or more, had not even been allocated to a worker for assessment. And I can only assume that's their idea of saving money by not paying veterans' TPI claims. Shame on them to target people who've served our country who, as we know, often only put their claims in when they're really desperate. But when we came to government, we were appalled at their treatment of veterans, so we fixed the problem. We allocated an extra $477 million to process the claims, and those claims, paying veterans who've served our country what they are justly entitled to, those claims have cost an additional $8.5 billion. So is that the government funding that those opposite think we should cut? We know they don't believe or maybe don't understand climate change and the need for energy transition, since 22 coal-fired power stations announced closure under them and they did nothing about it. Perhaps they want to cut funding for clean energy and instead spend squillions of government dollars on nuclear power plants. Perhaps they want us to get rid of the tax cut that will be coming in July this year and the one in the following July, because we know they opposed our tax cuts in the last term of government and they took a policy to reverse tax cuts to the last election and, in fact, increase taxes on Australians. So you see, Deputy Speaker, it really is easy to say cut government spending with no detail. They don't seem to have learned from their detail-free policies at the last election, and they've reverted to a 3-word slogan: cut government spending. But budgets are serious business and spending cuts have impacts on real Australians. So I challenge those opposite to give us some detail on what you actually think we should cut. Are you saying we should cut spending on infrastructure like roads? Should we cut on defence? Should it be education? Are we cutting the age pension on cost of living measures?
Members'
you need to tell us what it is.
Expired.